Hey guys, back here again. As of yesterday, I streamed a live stream of me reacting to AEW's Double or Nothing. Okay, my thoughts. I did not see the pre-show match, so I'm not going to bring that up. Understand that this is going to be stream of consciousness. I am actually recording this as I am streaming this, so the streamers get to see this first, but I will be putting it up into recorded version, unedited probably, later on. But here are the raw thoughts. Understand I may miss some things. That there's been a lot of matches that happened tonight. It started at 8 o'clock. 7:30, I believe, was the start of the pre-show with the first match. So 8 o'clock to, it's about 11:30 now. 11:45 was the end time. So 8 to 11:45, that's 3 hours, 45 minutes. I'm going to miss something. So the first match was a tag team match between Private Party and the Best Friends. Best Friends won, so they are number one contenders for the AEW Tag Team Championships. Like I said, I didn't really watch the full match, but I will say that I love Trent Beretta. He's been fantastic. He fought Kenny Omega in the first ever New Japan Pro Wrestling IWGP U.S. Heavyweight Championship match. No defense that Kenny Omega had, which was very interesting. So Kenny Omega and Trent had a match there, and it was a fantastic match. I loved it. So to have a tag match between the Best Friends with Chucky T, who's also a pretty good wrestler in New Japan. I've seen a few of his matches, and they both came from the U.S., but I only know their New Japan matches and their AEW tag team matches. I think they'd be a great tag team and a possible a team that could capitalize on the breaking down of Kenny Omega and Hangman Page. Though at the end of this, you will kind of think that it may not happen. So after that, the show starts with the ladder match, the token ladder match. I don't know what to call it. But it was a ladder match with 9 participants. There was a mystery participant, and it started with 2 people in the ring. They'd have a 2-minute countdown, and then once that 2 minutes came down, somebody else would join it. In my opinion, I think this is a way better way of doing something that could involve a prize at the end or a shot at a title. I think this is so much better just because of the fact that it's a lot less complicated. I do think that the ladder match is still flawed just because everybody's, it's a good idea, but there's only 2 people at the beginning. So the match can end technically before all 9 people are in the ring. So it's either you leave it as it is and you just know that it's not going to end until all 9 participants are there. Or say you fight for that, say like some years, or every year, there will be something to fight for the first slot into that match. I think that'd be very interesting to see what they do in the years ahead. If they do continue to keep this gimmick match, I think they could refine it and fix it in a way where you have people fighting for the first 2 slots, and then the rest of the slots will be random, and not every year there's going to be a mystery participant. So it could be filled out with all these different people, and the 2 people who have that slot, say they fight, and one year they finish like halfway through the match, and so the other half of the wrestlers there are just stuck in the wait. And I mean, it would suck, and you would kind of feel cheated because you've expected these guys to show up, but you could probably pay that off another way. It's just having something where you kind of know that all 9 people are going to be in the match and fighting. You should just chuck them in the ring at the beginning. It doesn't make sense to stunt it, to send each people in a staggered pace if it's not going to be like that. If it's going to just be like that at the end anyway. It's just going to be like a regular ladder match. Because there's only one way to win. It could also be fragments. You could have multiple things that you have to collect. Hold cards from the ceiling, and if you get a full house, you get a championship shot or something like that. Have like 5 poker chips, and once you collect all 5, you get that AEW title shot. I don't know. Just find a way to make it more interesting and intriguing so that it doesn't seem like, oh, now I have to wait until the ninth person enters for anybody to grab the briefcase. Just my thoughts on the matter. It was really cool to see Brian Cage come in as the last entrant with Taz. Taz is now a manager for Brian Cage, which is awesome. There's a fly literally going batshit crazy over near my lights there. The next match was the Cody and Lance Archer match for the TNT title. First off, the thoughts on the TNT Championship. They said that it was unfinished, but I still believe that you shouldn't be showing us something that's unfinished. You had so much time. You've been thinking about this title for a long time now. You should have had a more finished product. They even specifically said that it's unfinished and they're going to add more things to the title later on. But that title, my God, man, I'm sorry, that's borderline WWE. That looked terrible. I get it, It's just, you need something else in the middle plate. Everything else looks gorgeous. Just the big old blotch that says TNT that smooths metal. Put some embroideries in there. Do something. You put everything onto the AEW belt because it means something. Why not do that with the TNT Championship? I mean, the color of the strap, I'm not a huge fan of. I don't really like colored straps, but I'm fine with it. It's not like the Jam belt, But everything else is just plain. It's plain. And then the sides are fantastic. And then you look at the center, and it's just the TNT logo. I think you need to add a little bit more to it. I'm fine with the TNT logo. Just add a little bit more to it. The match itself was very good. It wasn't great. It wasn't like a normal Cody match. Cody usually steals the show with his match, but it wasn't normally that way. I think I got the order of the matches wrong. With the Cody-Lance Archer match. It doesn't matter. I'm going to hit the other match anyway. But it was also very early on the card, which I was very interested in. There was that whole thing with Arn Anderson and Jake the Snake Roberts. I was wondering if Arn Anderson was going to hit him with a spine buster, but it didn't happen. Cody did hit Lance Archer with a DDT. Lance Archer did hit Cody with a spine buster. So they sort of paid homage in that way. And Cody had a big flurry of offense. It was very cool. And Lance Archer sold it like an absolute beast. It took everything to destroy Lance. And I respect the fact that Cody went out of his way to make this a grueling slogfest where it seemed like he would lose at multiple moments. And it took way too much to put Archer down. But he did finally get Archer down. And, it didn't bury him. I don't think it buries him. I think Cody kind of deserved to win in a way. He does need a title and all that. And Archer, I don't think he loses too much. He looked very dominant in that match. And if it was anybody else other than Cody, he would have seriously... even with Cody, he seemed like a serious contender, and he did seem like he could win. But Cody is definitely a world champion type talent. The fact that he lost his ability to challenge after world championships is it sucks, but it does add a new level of prestige to the TNT championships. He's the first champion. I don't think anything was lost on that. Cody is a main eventer all the way through, and having him hold the TNT Championship adds more prestige, which makes the product seem a lot better as a result. Plus, he got to stand there with Iron Mike Tyson and hold up the championship belt. That's going to give him some megastar points. And forever, he will be known as the first TNT champion of a company that I don't think will be going away anytime soon. Next match, again, I think I got this order wrong, but that match was still super early in the thing. The next match was the Jungle Boy versus MJF match. That actually, now that I remember it, I believe it did happen right after the ladder match. Doesn't matter. The placement doesn't matter. This was one of the best matches on the show. The ladder match was fantastic. I love the spots in it. This one, I think, kind of beat that in a way for my personal taste. I really like the innovative groundwork that they did. MJF really showcases that he's sort of an old style wrestler, but a new style wrestler at the same time, and he combines it perfectly to the point where he could hit you with a backbreaker, and he makes that backbreaker, which was made decades ago. And he made it look new. Like, he just created it, and it looked so much more special, that sort of thing. He's a once-in-a-lifetime talent, and I think he has the skills to definitely continue on his rise. Jungle Boy, of course, as well, is fantastic. The fact that he's 2 years younger than MJF at 22 years of age is insane. This guy... he's just a genius when it comes to in-ring work. Just the little, like I said, the groundwork that they did. Jungle Boy is an acrobat. He can do so many flippy shit moves, you know? Like, he's a spot guy. But he definitely proved in this match he could also hang in just with in-ring work alone, because they would do those little sequences where they do the bridges and everything. And you know, this is what I kind of like in wrestling, where it does seem a lot more real than like hanging on and then waiting for somebody to dive on you. But it is so much more than that. It adds a whole new variety to it, and it brings in the old to make the new look better. And it looks more realistic. It's not too realistic, because that's what we got with Jon Moxley and Jake Hager. I wasn't a big fan. I thought it was a little bit, sloggy at moments and very slow, like a UFC match. So this one is a lot more high-paced, a lot more athleticism involved, and I think those two especially will be headlining this division and this company at some point. I don't think it's exactly now, but they're on the right track for sure. MJF won off of a roll-up, and I think that's great. Inconclusive. We could visit this again later on. And MJF really needs the win. He's going to continue up the card, and I think he's going to make a credible World Championship opportunist and possibly new World Champion. So MJF, Salt of the Earth, won, and good for him. Good for him. Good for them both. The next match is it was a Chris Statlander versus Penelope Ford. Not Chris Statlander versus Britt Baker. Britt Baker was injured on Dynamite because of the four-way match. Nyla Rose was thrown onto Britt Baker. Her arm was a bit broken. They had a backstage thing where a doctor said that, her injury's pretty bad, but she's even worse. She's high maintenance, and then there's something about she wants to address the AEW fans on Wednesday about her conditions and how long she'll be out. So now it's Penelope Ford versus Chris Statlander. We kind of all knew that Chris Statlander was going to win at that point. Chris Statlander, in comparison to Penelope Ford, is definitely getting a huge push. I think Chris is a fantastic face. The alien stuff, I don't know about. It's one of those things where it's like it could work, but you need to add a bit of realism to it. And Andromeda Galaxy, it is kind of, it's a little far-fetched. But I mean, you could always say she just thinks that she's an alien. Either way, it was a great match. A lot of botches, but that's what you're going to expect from a women's division that's very young. It has Kenny Omega, so, it's been getting better. We've seen it get steadily better, but some of the kinks still need to work out. I think we shouldn't be blaming the women's division too much. We shouldn't be saying that it's a bad part of the thing. And as well, stop complaining about the fact that they don't have as many women's feuds on the card. I think they're working a lot with what they have, and they really want a strong women's division. But at the moment, the independent scene in the U.S. especially does not really focus on the women's division, and it's usually the men's division that gets pushed Unfortunately, that's just the fact of life. So once these women start getting a lot bigger of a training scene on there, sort of like how WWE worked up through the years, I think it will be so much better. But this match, as that being said, it was decent. It had a few botches because, of course, it tends to do in AEW, but it looked good. So, good job, Chris Statlander, getting another victory. That's very cool. I would like to see you versus Shida for the championship. Speaking of, sorry, I spoiled it, but So the next match after that was the... Man, I really have to think about this one.
I actually completely forgot about this match. So Sean Spears called out Dustin on Dynamite for... I believe he said something about Dustin the week before. But he comes out in a suit. He talks about how Dustin isn't there. And he demands that Aubrey Edwards starts the match and starts counting him out. He does one of the Shawn Michaels things where he was in Toronto and he played Bret Hart's music, but Bret Hart didn't come out, obviously. So he did that, but with Dustin. So he's all cocky, and then all of a sudden the music goes off again, and he gets upset with the producers. He's like, I only said play it once. Sure enough, here comes Brandy. Brandy waves at him. She looks all happy, and just out of the camera's eye, you see Dustin show up, and yeah, so the match is underway. Dustin starts attacking Shawn, and really, this is a one-sided affair. Shawn does get some offense in, but not too much. Dustin easily makes quick work of him. I completely forgot about this match, like I said, and so, I mean, really, there wasn't too much for it anyway, so yeah, that was the match. The next match is the women's match, but I just wanted to bring this up because I completely forgot about it, and it really wasn't even that big of a match to talk about, so.
They had that graphic. At the beginning of the show, they had a graphic for Shad, which... one of my favorite wrestlers growing up. Such a tragic thing. That sucks. I was really hoping for a Crime Time reunion. You have no clue how much I loved Shad and JTG. Like, they were honestly two of my favorite wrestlers. Seriously. Like, I would have loved to meet them, and now I can't. To Shad's family, I my thoughts go to you. But also to the people the friends, the family of Hana. I forget her last name. I didn't really know her too well. She was a Joshi wrestler, and she committed suicide recently, and that's... If you are having any thoughts of like that, I'll see if I can leave the link to the suicide helpline in the description. Please talk to them. Nobody wants to see you go. Nobody. Especially not me. If there is people that want to see you go, know that I don't want to see you go, and that should matter. You deserve to live, no matter who you are. So that was the thing that happened just before the match. The match went through, and I think they chose the right decision. They gave Shida the belt. I don't know if she was a friend with Hana, but even before that, I really do believe that Shida deserves this championship. It's not like just some fluke, oh, she's Japanese, so we need to celebrate Japan right now for giving her the belt to honor the memory of Hana. I think Shida really did deserve this belt, and it was a really touching tribute when they started saying, oh, well, this is for Hana. But she did fantastic. She's always been one of my favorite wrestlers. The moment she came in, when she was one of those people that was sort of crossed in at the beginning of AEW, and she put on a show, and she did fantastic, and then they signed her, and I'm like, that's great. She's going to be champion one day. I know she's going to be champion, because she brought out matches back when every match seems like a huge botch. She came in and put on a very good match. And I think she put on a very good match here. There were a few spots here that were very but the total match was just fantastic. I think for people who are worried about this scene and the hot swapping between champions, I think the women's division should be hot swapping champions right now because it's not solid. The talent's not solid, so just switch around. I think it shouldn't be bad to switch champions like this when the division does seem to have a lot of cracks in it. When it starts becoming solid, when it starts really pushing down against the limits, I know this division is going to be one of the best. It's gonna. I could see it passing WWE easily. You just got to work with it, and I think Shida is definitely a great new ring bearer for a flag bearer for this new women's division as they evolve. But Nyla Rose was still a great champion. I don't think we should say that she was a transitional champion. She held it for over 100 days. And Nyla, overall, you're great. You're great. You're wonderful. And I think you were a great flag bearer for the transgender community as the first ever transgender women's champion that is recognized by PWI, I guess. I don't know. I could be wrong on that, but from what I know, the only transgender women's champion or champion of any kind that I've known of. You've been fantastic, wonderful. I'm glad you exist. Keep going, Nyla. You're wonderful. I'll just say that. And I was the one that was fighting for Nyla to win it all out. I cheered Nyla to the moon and back to become the first women's champion. I was very upset when Riho won it. I was in the stands. I was very upset. No offense against Riho. She's really good. The next match is the AEW World Championship match that is between Jon Moxley and Brody Lee, which was it was a really good match for the most part. I thought it was a little disappointing, and then they said it was a part of a 2-part main event, and I completely forgot about the Stadium Stampede. So that match happened, and I swear to you, this is probably the best world title match that I've seen out of Moxley. This is even including the Chris Jericho match where he won the belt. It was very high octane. 2 people at the top of their games. You could tell that they were having a blast out there. It was brutal. It was the part of Moxley that I really enjoyed, which is when it's not like deathmatch Moxley. It's not submission expert Moxley, which we'll talk about in a second. But it was Moxley that's dangerous that we see in the Minoru Suzuki matches. You know, when he faced Minoru Suzuki, it was in the G1 or somewhere, and they just clobbered each other. They even had a few moments like that. That is the Moxley that I enjoy. Brody Lee was fantastic in this match. He's so much different than his WWE counterpart, and it's great. It's wonderful. I honestly, once he gets his character fully sorted out, he's going to be a main eventer too. I guarantee that. It's just that everybody kind of knew that he wasn't going to win. It was fun, high octane. Towards the end, Jon Moxley just goes batshit crazy against him. It's fantastic. I love the offense that he did. The paradigm shift through the oh, that looked like it. Oh, his head was way too close to that wooded bar there. Oh, God. That happened. He brought him in, hit him with another high velocity paradigm shift. He kicks out, which is insane, and then he gets him in some sort of triangle choke, and he passes out. So Jon Moxley actually won by submission rather than pin, which is very interesting. And it did put into he can't pin Brody Lee. He's too big and he keeps kicking out. So he's just going to submit him, which is very cool. Then the main event. The Stadium Stampede match. They're in the stadium. The ring is in the middle, and the fog machines start up. They start announcing each member of the Inner Circle. They all come out in team jerseys. Jericho comes out as number 27, which is, I believe, the same as his father. Is it 27? Yeah, I think it's 27. Santana and Ortiz come out as 51 and 50, respectively. Sammy Guevara comes out as 93, which is the year that he was born. I don't know about the 50 and 51. I know there's like a significance with each number. And Hager, I believe, comes out as number 2, and I think that's the amount of years that he played football. So that's they came out like that with full football uniforms. And then the Elite comes out without football uniforms, which you knew that Chris Jericho was the one that, like, oh, guys, we got to get football uniforms. This is going to be great. So he grabbed the football uniforms, and I'm sure the Elite didn't even get the notice because they would have came in with their own Elite uniforms, I'm sure. But they all come out. Everyone except Hangman. And they're all just standing like, where's Hangman? Like the BTE thing. The match starts. They start getting into a brawl. And the numbers game becomes too much. It happens for a little bit. It's a bit chaotic. They're fighting around the ring. They start going into the ring. Everybody starts hitting their moves. Inner Circle take over. And Sammy Guevara ends up outside of the ring somewhat, and he looks around, and he sees a horse. And the horse starts coming down. Look at that. It's Hangman Adam Page wearing his bandana and all that. So Sammy does the same thing with the golf cart, but with a horse, starts running away from it. So Hangman chases him with the horse. They skirmish around for a little bit more. Sammy gets away. Hangman's not able to find him. He goes looking for him throughout the stadium, the inside of the stadium. So they both enter the stadium. He ends up going to a bar. But the rest of them, they start fighting and they start separating. So Kenny Omega and Matt Hardy separate as a team, and they start fighting off against Ortiz and Santana. They sort of fight up towards I want to say this is like where all the rich people sit, they called it like the rally spot or something like that, rally level something, but they start fighting through this place, and Kenny Omega. No, Matt Hardy gets thrown into a barricade that seemed kind of bent. I hope it wasn't Matt who bent it. Kenny Omega gets thrown into another one. They pick up the barricade that Kenny Omega was thrown onto. They throw it on top and lay it across this bridge of like two metal things. I don't even know what the things were. But they lay it across. They put Kenny onto the thing. They slam him down onto it. And then they hit a double power bomb through it, bending, like breaking the guardrail in half. And he's just laid out on there. And they start focusing on Matt Hardy. They fight with him. They bring him over to a pool. They throw him into the pool. Santana's having this funny thing with Ortiz because he sort of jumps on Matt. When he jumps in, and he's like, come on, Ortiz, get in here. And Ortiz is like, I can't swim. And it's 3 feet of water. So he finally, like, walks in slowly, and they both hold Matt Hardy's head up below the water. Give me 1 second. I have to go to the bathroom. Whew. Sorry about that. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah. So they hold Matt Hardy's head underwater. Matt Hardy comes up as version 2, and he just starts bashing on them. They hold him back down. A Matt Fact thing appears. It says like he can hold his breath for 357 seconds or something like that. And he pops up again. He's V1. He starts attacking them. They hold his head down again. You could tell that this is pre-recorded because he's changing clothes. And it comes back up as Broken Matt Hardy as they're about to leave the pool. Broken Matt Hardy comes out, starts beating them. He throws Santana through a table, I think. This is where my memory becomes a little bit hazy because, like, at that point, I was in the zone. I was having so much fun. But he starts... He does something to take out the Santana. And Ortiz, Ortiz crawls over to a bell that's been standing on the side there. And he rings the bell. And Ortiz is just selling this like a cartoon character. He's shaking his head because, oh my God, the bell was so loud. He sits him down in a chair of wheels, which is a wheelchair, and duct tapes him to the wheelchair. And then he starts facing Santana. He beats him down. They go near an ice box, an ice chest there, just like they did during that episode of Dynamite where they fought in that backstage brawl with Kenny Omega. But Matt Hardy gets the better of this and ends up throwing Santana in the ice box and puts a broom in between to lock the thing. Also, Kenny Omega right at the beginning of the match hits somebody with the broom. It's very funny. But a modern broom, not a old-fashioned broom like he did before with Moxley. So it's different. They switch over cameras now. Kenny Omega has been absent this entire time. He's just sort of been laid out because of that guardrail thing. Hangman Page, now in a bar, is being pursued by Jake Hager. Jake Hager finds his horse, goes into the bar, and he sits down at the bar. And Hangman is sitting there, and he looks over at Hager. Hager's looking back at him. He said, "What are you here for? Do you want to fight or do you want to drink?" And he pours out like a cup of whiskey and sort of passes it over to Hager. Hager drinks it, and he's like, "You know what?" That Hangman says, "You know what? Because I'm here for both." And he just sort of starts laying hands on Hager, which does not work. He throws Hangman easily. They start getting into a scuffle. Hager is getting the better of him. There's like a point where Hangman starts doing these cool acrobatics to get out of being thrown onto the bar counter. He rolls over the pool table. At the beginning of this onslaught, he grabs a pool cue and he breaks it in half off of Hager, which he does not sell at all, which freaks him out. And then at the end, he throws him onto the bar counter successfully and just slides him across the bar like you see in those movies, through the drinks and such, right off of the thing. So that was fun to see. That's when Kenny comes in, now away from the Matt Hardy stuff, and he starts attacking Hager. He hits him in the head with a glass, I think it was a glass bottle, and Hager just no-sells it. And he looks at him, and Kenny looks at him like, "Ooh, hey, how's it going?" That sort of thing. And Hangman, before Hager could get his hands on Kenny, hits him with another beer bottle, and then they start grabbing, what is it, the little bit of the bubbly wine bottles, and just start smashing off of his head, which he begins to start selling after like the fourth or fifth bottle, and they start taking him out, and they set him up against the bar. They lean him against it, and Kenny just sort of huddles down and lets Hangman jump off of his back to hit the, sort of, flip over his back to hit the thing. The buckshot lariat, that's what it is. Knocks him over the counter, and they sort of Hangman goes over the bar and starts to pour out. Pulls out 2 glasses, pulls out the thing of whiskey that he was drinking, and a jug of milk, and he pours out Kenny his jug of milk. Kenny pours Hangman his thing of whiskey. They cheers. A little bit of the milk gets into the whiskey, and they both down their drinks. Kenny only gets about halfway through, but Hangman drinks the entire thing, milk included. And they leave together. The next thing that happens is Jericho is facing off against... Sammy Guevara is facing off against Matt Jackson, but Matt Jackson gets the better of Sammy and starts doing his locomotion suplex. And he starts doing it. They cut over to Jericho versus Nick. And Nick and Jericho are facing off against each other. Nick gets Jericho's... he starts pushing his head into the fog machine, but Jericho just starts fighting back against Nick. They scrap for a little bit. Jericho actually gets a near fall, which he then contests with the referee, says he wants to check the replay. They go into a tent, and they're arguing, but they're checking the replay, and sure enough, it's a 2 count, and he's like, the cameraman's cheating me, and he gets out, and Nick Jackson starts attacking him again. He goes to throw Jericho into a Jaguar head, but Jericho is actually able to get Nick into the Jaguar head. This gets the Jacksonville Jaguars mascot very upset, goes up to Jericho, starts getting upset with him, starts taunting him, and Jericho hits him with the Judas effect. So that happens. Nick Jackson starts getting the upper hand again. It goes back to Matt Jackson pretty much throughout the sequence, and they show him at the beginning doing the locomotion thing, they show him in the middle doing the locomotion thing, and they show him at the end doing the locomotion thing, where the implication is that he's done this the entire length of the football field. He starts getting the better of Nick Jackson, so here comes Matt Jackson, and now the Young Bucks are facing off against Jericho, and I don't quite remember how they put Jericho out, but they sort of... it was... Matt is holding him on a table, and Nick decides to jump off of the stands to hit Jericho, but instead, before he does that, he runs up the first level of chairs at the stairs, and he then runs down at a quite casual pace those same stairs as Matt keeps holding him down, and he ends up doing a flip into a frog splash onto the table, which puts Jericho out of the match. So at this point, all the Elite are the Young Bucks are standing over the corpse of Jericho. Santana, Ortiz, and Jake Hager are all out of commission. That leaves one person. Sammy Guevara's still around. He gets woken up by the water, the sprinkler system inside of the football field itself, turning on, activating it, hits Sammy. So it sort of wakes him up. He stands up. He thinks he won. He's like, guys, I won. Turns around and sees a golf cart. Not just any golf cart, but a golf cart with Kenny Omega and Matt Hardy behind the wheel. Shades of the backstage brawl match happen, and he starts to run away from the cart again. So he starts running. Bryce Rimsberg, I believe, is the official running by the side of Sammy there. It's sort of like, it's set up like a whirlwind sprint, which I believe is, if you're a football player, you're supposed to run a certain speed. So during your training, they'll have you like run, face each other, where you're just running as fast as you possibly can to the other side of the field. So that's what he's doing. He's running as fast as he possibly can, and instead of getting hit by the golf cart, he actually climbs up onto the stands. So now all of the Elite, Hangman Page, the Young Bucks, mostly Matt Hardy and Kenny Omega, are chasing Sammy Guevara up the stands. And he gets up onto a platform and he's fighting off Matt Hardy and Kenny Omega. And Matt Hardy ends up getting him off of that and starts beating him down. Kenny Omega gets into the scuffle. They get the upper hand and they throw him back onto the platform. Matt Hardy gestures Kenny Omega to go up to the platform. Kenny Omega then goes up to the platform. And the worst spot, like the scariest spot, he grabs Sammy. I'm like, okay, so he's going to hit the one-winged angel on this platform. So he gets him up for the one-winged angel. And then he moves closer to the edge of the platform. I'm like, this is a little scary. You're right near the edge, bud. No, he wasn't going to hit the one-winged angel onto the platform. That'd be too easy. I mean, just hitting the one-winged angel normally on Sammy Guevara, in this state especially, would have won the match. No, he decides to new jacket and hit a one-winged angel, jump off of the platform with Sammy Guevara onto another platform below. There's a bit of cushioning, and hit a one-winged angel there. And he had enough consciousness to just sort of lay his arms on there. He was perfectly fine. And then he rolls out, and they celebrated because he pinned Sammy Guevara. So they beat the Inner Circle. All the Inner Circle was beaten. They stood proud. Hangman Page was a part of the crew. He did not, very specifically, he didn't really interact with Matt Jackson. You know, he talked with him. You see that in the background when they're celebrating with Kenny Omega in the front. But he's talking to Matt Jackson. But he gets over to Kenny, puts his arm around him. He didn't touch Matt Jackson at all. They didn't shake hands. They didn't do anything. But he holds his arm around Kenny because he likes Kenny. And he feels out of place in this elite faction. You could see it in his eyes. So it was so cool. Great visual to end the show. They kind of rushed it. JR sounded like he was running out of time and fast because he went, "The Elite won the match. Thank you for joining us on Double or Nothing, and have a great night." It was great. It was wonderful. The show itself was all right. It was all right until the end. And then it was a great show. It was a fantastic show at the end. They had a great ladder match. Brian Cage came in and won the match, which is such a good idea. Like, we kind of knew that this guy was going to show up. I mean, it wasn't Gulak, but there was no way that they had Gulak already pinned that close to the show. They've been announcing this thing for like a few weeks now. Gulak didn't know that his contract was going to expire until recently, until last Friday's SmackDown. No, until last Saturday. So, they didn't know this. Brian Cage is a monster. Perfect for Taz. I mean, everything was fantastic on this show. And I don't think there was any bad parts. I mean, that Penelope Ford versus Chris Statlander match left some things to be desired. And if they could have moved stuff around after these injuries came out, it probably should have been that to the pre-show and move the tag team division up. Because as much as I like Chris Statlander and Penelope Ford, they're both great talents. I mean, they don't really have the star power that Britt Baker has. Now, do they? I mean, Statlander is kind of up there, but Britt Baker has been the one that people have been tuning in to see. So they should have just bumped that down a little bit, brought up the Best Friends versus a Private Party match. But I guess they wanted to give it away for free. And that's great. That's fine. That's wonderful. The show itself was fantastic. And it sort of seemed like it was going to under-deliver towards the end. But no, it came back and it did a lot better. That Mike Tyson thing, I was kind of expecting a little bit more than a tease that he could beat up someone and then taking off his shirt. Guess it can't be helped. Great show. I don't think it was their best. I give it like a 4 out of 5 for sure. It's a good show. Watch it, for sure. especially the beginning of the show and the end of the show. It was just great. That Cody match with Lance Archer was pretty good, well built. That Brody Lee versus Jon Moxley match was a really, really hard hitting match. The Stadium Stampede was crazy fun. It was so fun, and the ladder match, like I said, was a super fun festival of spots. You know, you have interference from Kip Sabian's crew with Jimmy Havoc and Penelope Ford. You have Darby Allin doing an ollie onto a table or a ladder, breaking his fall with his legs. You have Brian Cage being covered in literally everything that they could find, including the set, and still winning the match. Luchasaurus versus Brian Cage. I want to see that now, because they had such a good skirmish. Oh, and the MJF versus Jungle Boy match is something that we will be talking about for years. This is the start of a great era for wrestling. I mean, it has been a great start. But their showcase match, one day we're going to look back at that and we're going to say Jungle Boy and MJF made their start here. This is like they are going to be here for a long time, and they're going to be great stars. I can already tell. Darby Allin's a great star. So many young talent. That's what I love about this show. And the young talent definitely deliver. All right. That's it. Thank you guys. Sorry about that. I'm keeping this way too long. But it was a very good show. And I hope you will join me for the next live stream when the next show comes out, which it seems like it's going to be All Out, because they did show the date for All Out to be September 5th. I think there will be Fyter Fest. There will be Fight for the Fallen. We'll probably do those too. And I hope that I'll see you guys there. Fight for the Fallen definitely needs to happen. I think if any pay-per-view is going to happen, it's going to be Fight for the Fallen. All right. Thank you guys. And I'll see you next time. And I'm sorry I kept this so long for the live stream, people. This really has been a long... this is the longest thing that I think I've done. All right. I have to edit stuff now. Great.